Of course, continue to talk about how important this year's election is. We're going to be bringing in our trial attorney as well as legal analyst, Kelly Hyman. And Kelly, I appreciate your time here today. We were just speaking about that, about how important it is for the voters to have their voice heard, and that's exactly what they're going to do today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to see you. Yes, today is a wonderful day. If you believe in democracy, today is the day for people to get out and vote and have their voice be heard. One of the issues that you see that the American people are concerned about is our democracy. And so a way to make sure that their voice is heard is to get out there and vote. And it'll be interesting to see who turns out. There's a lot of issues on the ballot. Whether it's the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, is there going to be an outpour of women voting to express their view one way or another? And we're going to have to see how that turns out.
So as we think about these voters who are stepping out here today, I want to talk about also, we've been seeing some big states all across the country already having those early votings just shatter record numbers. What does that say about this year's election?
That it's important, that it's so great about our country is that we can get out and vote so that people's voice can be heard, that there are issues that are affecting people, whether it's the economy or Roe v. Wade or any other kind of injustice in our society, that people are getting out to vote and know that their vote counts and vote matters. It's really important to give people access to the polls. That's key. I am a true component of that. It should be a national holiday for people to be able to vote, to let their voice be heard and get out there so they can express themselves on the ballot, no matter who they vote for. It's their choice.
And we think about, too, this year, it seems like there's been a lot of big issues that people have been caring about, not only, as you mentioned, the Roe v. Wade issue, abortion rights all across the country, but inflation and also crime. It seems like these have been a lot of big talking points for candidates, no matter which races that they're running in. So are we going to see some of these candidates afterwards really trying to make good on their promises once they've been elected?
I hope so. I'm a true optimist, but I think it's important, no matter what political philosophy you have, that the parties come together and work together to help the American people, to stand up for the American people, and to make sure that they help them, whether it's a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, and work together to get things passed. And that can happen. As we saw on the Camp Lejeune Act, that it was bipartisan, that Congress came together, Republican, Democrat, independent, and got out there and supported it to help the people in our military, to make sure that they were taken care of. And that's important to help the American people, and that's key.
So as we're seeing some of these different polling locations, the ballots now being processed in multiple counties across the country, and we think about those issues that we were mentioning, Maricopa saw some of these technical issues. Does that give us a little bit less confidence in this process? Because that has been a big debate, too, is the way that we handle this democracy.
Right, that's a really good point. And so that's why some people say that we should have more time for people to vote, right? To give more access to the polls, to give people more early voting. I don't know about you, but I did early voting, and I went there on the weekend and walked up straight through and voted. But I think it's key. No democracy is perfect. Right. And so I think it's important to remember that. But I think it's key is to give people access to the polls. And by doing that is giving polls where they open and making it available for people on the weekend, where people work during the week. It's hard for them to take off work and to vote. And I'm trying to make sure that we don't have long lines, and also to give access to people where we don't have issues happening. But that's, part of the process. But I do believe in our system, and I do believe democracy will always prevail.
And that's something, too, that we've heard also from some of the leaders across the country, and even President Biden himself, as he said that when it comes to these voters, their voice is going to be heard no matter which direction it does sway those seats or maybe their states. He said that we have to honor then those results of the election at the end of the day.
No, absolutely, and I think that's key. That's why if people want their voice to be heard, to express it, to get out there. And I know that a lot of times people think that their voice doesn't matter or it doesn't count. It does. And I think that's key. And also giving people access to the polls and not limiting the polls. You hear, types of stories where people, the person in Arizona that allegedly went to vote and they were, screaming at them, or there were some kind of issues for them as well, where they felt intimidated. We shouldn't have that at the polls. We should make it easy and accessible so people have the right to vote, and so their voice can be heard.
And today is definitely the day to do it. Get your voice heard, get your ballots in, make sure you're out there voting. And we do appreciate you speaking about it, all of it with us here. Kelly Hyman joining us here on Live Now from Fox again. We appreciate your time here today, Kelly, and hopefully we'll have some of those results pouring in the later hours tonight.
That sounds great. It's great to see you. Be safe, stay healthy. God bless.
Thank you.